In 1991, you guys released your debut album, self-titled. This was recorded independently. When you think back to that album, what comes to mind?
Well, okay, so the album was recorded within those walls, those freezer walls. And the funniest thing that comes to mind was we did it all ourselves. And I remember being in the corner on that heavy duty drum riser that Stewart had built. Everything's mic'd up. And going through a couple takes, and you play the song a million times, but I kept, you know, fucking it up. And I'm like, come on, man, let's get this together. And Jeff said, you know what? Let's just not roll film, just or roll tape. Just keep playing, So okay, I'll just keep playing. So I'm playing away, and then I'm looking over and I'm seeing the thing spinning around, and I'm like, you son of a I'm playing, and I didn't mess it up. And then he tried to Jeff continuously tried to pull the tape's not running.
That's the
Don't worry
oldest
about it.
trick in the producer book.
Yeah, and you would know, right? So I was pretty green when it came. Well, we all were pretty green when it came to recording at that point, but that was hilarious. So that's one of the things that really, really stood out was the fact that they were tricking me into believing that the tape was not rolling. So
With you guys recording that album yourselves, do you think that really helped Jeff to go on to be the producer that he's become?
yeah, he really, really wanted that, and he's such an incredible musician. I mean, he can play anything with strings, and he's pitch perfect, and and he's pretty humble about it, despite what the exterior may show. He's so good at what he does. So when it did come time to negotiating, when we were offered a record deal, that was probably the third thing that was being mentioned, is that, oh no, we are self-produced kind of thing. And it was a tough cookie to nut to crack, but or nut to crack, but that's what happened. Yeah.
So it's really hard for a band to sound unique with the amount of music that's released globally. Yet
Yeah.
somehow from the start, the Tea Party had a signature sound. How important was that to the band to really cultivate that unique sound?
We loved it. I mean, of course we got our comparisons, and every band does. And the way we looked at it was, if you're going to compare us to anyone, if we're the Doors with meets Led Zeppelin, well, thank you. It doesn't get much better than that. They were throwing them as shade, and we were like, well, sure, Jeff's a baritone, plays guitar, just a little bit better than Jim Morrison, and you know what I mean. It couldn't have been much better. So those comparisons help. I mean, if you're compared to someone that you don't appreciate, I guess that would be a bit of shade, but we always tried to be ourselves. We never really wanted to be a band where everyone is expecting the exact same sound but different songs. And God bless the bands, AC/DC. Who doesn't love AC/DC? But it's the same sound, the same drum sound, regardless of who's playing. And they have the big fat wall of guitars and the very thick twos and fours on the snares. And that's what they do. And that's wonderful. But it's just not what we wanted to do. And there are a lot of bands out there like that now. And I can appreciate it, because you get into this wacky industry to do something different and to challenge yourself and to not punch in and punch out. And when you start recording the same types of things over and over, it almost feels like you are punching in and punching out, because you're playing them live every night. And the last thing I want to do every night is be four on the floor and just yawning through the half set kind of thing. There's no time, because every limb is moving almost at all times. So it's wonderful that way. We've set it up nicely for ourselves.
When you guys first started those recording sessions, was the goal just to record a demo to try to get a record deal, and then it ended up being a full length that you released independently?
No, we wanted to do an album at that point, which was good. I mean, I specifically remember, as I was talking earlier about doing the Windsor, London, Toronto back and forth. I remember, and I don't even know how it happened, but Hal Arbor, he just passed away, I believe, on Edge 102. we had finished a show probably at Say What on Front Street, is where we normally played. And we were coming home probably at 4 in the morning, and we heard Save Me, the indie version of Save Me. And we were just like, what is happening? So that was the big thing for us. And we didn't really have to do the 3-song demo kind of thing. I think we had done that even in high school. And I do believe we have a rejection letter. I think Stuart has a rejection letter from Warner back then. But that's what you do when you're kids. You just try. But our position then was, let's do an album. And then we ended up getting a publishing deal before we got our record deal with Warner Chappell. And at that point, Jeff Kuliwick was fielding different record companies, and EMI came along and said, yeah, we'd love you to record, and we'd love Jeff to produce or co-produce if that's cool. And from there, we did a 3 or 5 song sort of Capitol Records, Capitol before EMI Records demo kind of thing. And they loved it. And then we got to go back and finish it. So that's that easy enough story, I guess.
Is it true that that independent album that you guys only printed about 3,500 copies? So now, you know, you've remastered and re-released it in the last few years, but
Yeah.
is it true that there's just 3,500 of those originals that are probably collector's items now?
Yeah, I think the way it worked is I think the first pressing was 2,500, but then, as I mentioned, we were getting lots of friendly feedback from Edge 102 or whatever it was, CFNY 102 back then. And so we ended up doing a small second pressing of maybe 1,500 or 1,300. I think there's 3,800 total, where we do thank CFNY and so on and so forth. Because for us, as young guys in a band, how cool does that look? You're thanking these radio stations that you grew up dreaming of being on. So, you know, we listed some of those, and some of the people that came along and helped us along the way, and our new agent and that sort of thing. So